I am truly excited to be here with you this morning. I'm glad that I have company with me. My wife is here, my mom at Trinity is here, and my sister of Carlo is here. So we're glad to have you with us, Alice. The last time I preached was in 2005. Wow. Well, not the last time I preached anyway. So the last time I preached in Chicago was in 2005. Interestingly, it was also a Thanksgiving. Yes. So whenever you have Thanksgiving, just and special thanks to the young woman who read the passage for me. You made my work easy in the sense that I won't go reading the whole thing again, but we will be making references to the passage. Thank you, Pastor, for the invitation. This is home. I really feel like home. At least today, I have done one or two things I haven't done recently. I wish I could do this more often. But thank you. The passage that we have read for me is an interesting passage for so many reasons. You look at the text and you find the references to either do not forget or remember. And they occur with some kind of frequency that I think the central message of the entire text is about remembering. And so I decided that we will speak on the topic remember. Why remember? I think because the human mind has this immense propensity to always forget. It is part of our humanness, it seems, to always forget. But that's not the only thing with the human mind. We choose what we want to forget. And in most cases, the good things of life that God has graciously brought our way are things that we easily forget because we take them for granted. I will remember all of our pains and our sorrows and our anguish and all of the bad things people have done for us, we tend to remember. And all of the things that we wish God had done for us that He, for reasons best known to Him, has decided not to, we remember. Mm-hmm. But today we want to remember something. I will mention two people, and I promise you that I won't be mentioning people again. Okay, we'll be dwelling in the scripture. Well, one of the African scholars that God has called home, says that memory is integral to identity. Did I say I'll mention two people? Yes. Okay, I'll add one more. Yes. The other one, and this is not your typical church person to be mentioned on the pulpit, but hey, Ziggy Marley, the son of the legendary Bob Marley, sang the song Tomorrow's People. And one of the things he said in the song is that you don't know your past, you don't know your future. Somebody who said it more eloquently will be, for me, Andrew Walls, who is a renowned scholar of African church history. And he said that a past is vital for all of us. Without it, like an amnesiac man, we won't know who we are. And as I look at the text, it does appear to me that these are some of the reasons why God calls the Israelites to remember. Now, our brother, when he was giving his testimony, Pastor Philike, he made reference to Psalm 103. Interestingly, that's a passage I had in mind, especially verse 2. And forget not all his benefits. Why? Because it is the commonest of temptations of the heart. Forget the benefits. When we go through the Bible, there are so many passages and so many examples of memorials I'm not sure that I have, or you even have the time for us to look at about 10 different kinds of memorials in the Bible. That will take a whole day. But there are a few that I will make reference to in the course of the message, and then we will continue. Now, before the passage that we have read, you find that there is Deuteronomy chapter 6. And in Deuteronomy chapter 6, beginning from verse 4 all through to 12, we're not reading that, you find what is popularly called the Shema. And in it, there are references to what we will qualify as an act of remembrance. When it says in verse 4, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God, the Lord is one God," and then it continues with what is expected of the parents to do as far as transferring the knowledge of this God, as far as transferring the teachings of this God. So theological education within the Jewish context was expected to be done within the context of remembering. That the parents have remembered the things that God has done and who God has been to the nation of Israel, and they are called upon to do same in the lives of their children. So you find Moses, as he paints down what the Lord tells him, that they are to talk about the things of the Lord to their children. They are to tie them as symbols, and they are to write them on their doorposts. All so that when the children ask, what do this mean? They will be able to say, this is what the Lord has done for us. When in Genesis 9, verse 12 to 17, you find the rainbow. The rainbow was there to also signify or memorialize something that God had done for the nation of Israel. Now, even though that was just Genesis before the formation of the nation, but there was something that was also in the future coming. God brought the flood when people wouldn't listen. There was massive destruction, but Noah and his household were saved. And the rainbow came as a sign that never again will the Lord destroy the earth with flood. So each time we see the rainbow, something points us to something that happened way back in history before we were born. The Passover will be something that I'll be making reference to, so I will leave this. But it was also a form of memorializing how God delivered the nation of Israel from their bondage in Egypt. How God provided protection for them. And then, of course, we will find the Lord's Supper as another form of memorializing what God has done in the deliverance that He has brought to all peoples who will believe. The death, the resurrection, and the ascension of Jesus Christ. But in the text that we have read, there are 4 things that I hope we will remember about what memorials are. And I will go through them. The first one is that remembrance or memorialization is an act of retrospective contemplation. By that I mean that it is an act where we are thanking God for blessings we have already received. And to be able to do that, there is a looking back. Israel was called to remember by looking back, casting their minds back at the many things that the Lord has done. And beginning from verse 2, remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the desert these 40 years, to humble you and to test you in order to know what was in your heart, whether or not you will keep His commands. He humbled you, causing you to hunger, and then feeding you with manna, which neither you nor your fathers had known, to teach you that man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. Your clothes did not wear out, and your feet did not swell during the 40 years. Know then in your heart that as a man disciplines his son, so the Lord your God disciplines you. And in verse 15 and 16, you still find this act of remembrance, which is the practice of retrospective contemplation. Verse 15, He led you through the vast and dreadful desert, that thirsty and waterless land, and its venomous snakes and scorpions. He brought you water out of hard rock. He gave him manna to eat in the desert, something your fathers have never known, to humble and to test you, so that in the end it might go well with you. If you remember the whole story about the Israelite wandering, you remember how after 430 years it pleased the Lord, because the Lord saw the pain and the anguish, the affliction of his people. Their cry rose up to God. And God sent Moses. And you know all of the drama with Moses, complaining he doesn't know how to talk. Well, eventually God said, well, if that is the reason, you're still going to do the work, and your brother Aaron is going to be a mouthpiece. And remember how all of the experiences and all of the 10 plagues of Israel, that God brought upon the nation of Egypt, for the climax being the slaying of the firstborn of Egypt. But something happened in the house of God. The blood of the lamb that God asked them to keep and put on the door frames and their windows. And the Lord said, when the destroying angel comes, he will see the blood and he will pass on. Israel may not have realized at that point that act was a prefiguration of something greater to come. That in the future, God is going to do something from this little experience, that was little, that in it God was preparing the salvation of all of humanity, in the sense that when he sees the blood of his Son Jesus Christ, he passes over anyone who has professed faith in him. I'm not sure that they realized that was what was happening. But so they were to remember, because this was a blessing that they received. But they were also to remember that in the years of wilderness wandering, God did not leave them alone. For 40 years, these people wandered in the wilderness. God went with them, providing them a covering when the sun was hot. He provided a canopy for them, a pillar of cloud, to keep them from the scorching heat of the sun. And God was also doing something in that process. God wasn't going to let their journey to be affected in any way. They were to continue in this journey, and they were enjoying the divine presence through the canopy. But in the night, God also led them with this pillar of fire. And what God was doing with the pillar of fire was actually providing for them light for their path, but also chasing out wild animals. And God was graciously leading his people. And they were to constantly remember these acts of mercies and blessings that they have already received. When they hungered and needed something to eat, God rained on them manna, something they never saw. Their parents had never seen. They didn't know anything about manna. In fact, they didn't even know what to call it. They called it manna. What is this? How can the name of food just be what is this? Well, they had no idea how to name this one. And they simply called it, what is this? And in this also, I see something about the future when you go to Revelation. That those who overcome will be given from the hidden manna. So, from acts that God generated in the lives of the wanderings of the children of Israel, God was making something about his future promises with all of his people. Men and women who come to faith through sheer acts of God's grace. But God did this so that he can humble them and test their hearts to see what is there, to know what is there. Now, God knows what is in their hearts. But God tested their hearts not so much because God was ignorant about what was in their heart. God wanted to bring out what is in their hearts so that they are now knowledgeable about what is in their hearts. Our hearts are always a mixture of the good and the bad. The human mind has this immense capacity for good and for evil. And you wonder what is really going on. But God knew what was in their hearts. But God also did this so that he can humble them. You know how humbling the Christian salvation is. I'm already going into my application. Christian salvation is humbling because you don't do anything. You can contribute. And in a society and culture where we talk about your sufficiency, self-sufficiency, and so on and so forth. When it comes to salvation, it simply says there's nothing you can do. I have done everything. All you need to do is to believe. So even when you walk, you are not walking for it, you are walking out what you already have. God humbled them by that. In this humbling, God expected that they will be able to acknowledge that it is He. And you will find he. In the passage, it was all about God and not about anyone. When they wanted to take, all that Moses needed to do was to speak to the rock. He did at one point, and water came. At another point, Moses got so annoyed with them, and he said to them, "You rebels, must I give you water out of this rock?" And with his staff, he struck the rock, and water came out. Well, we later understood what happened. And this water, this rock, was Christ Himself. That He is the water of life. You remember in John 4 when He spoke with the Samaritan woman? He pointed to the fact that He indeed was the water of life. You remember when He fed the multitude and they had their fill and they went looking for Him the next day and they found Him and said, "Master, where have you been? We've been looking for you." And Jesus said, "Yeah, I know. Last night you ate bread, free lunch. No wonder you're looking for me." And He changed the conversation and He said, "My flesh is real bread, real food, real meat. Whoever eats of my flesh." I started when have we gone this way? Are we cannibals? You know that we are Jews, we don't eat human flesh. Oh well, Jesus was talking about Himself being the bread of life. Now, all of these we can learn from the experiences and the many blessings that the Israelites enjoyed. One of the miracles of preservation that I see in the text is, I don't understand how for 40 years these people wandered in the wilderness and their clothes did not wear out, and their shoes. I don't know what happened. The Old Testament scholar here may help us. What really happened? I don't know how to comprehend. I know that when they left, there is what is called the spoils of the Egyptians with them. God granted them favor and they got whatever they wanted from their oppressors. Now, when we were growing up, my dad still feels that I'm still growing up. But when we were growing up, my dad was so wise. There's what poverty does to you. Poverty gives you additional wisdom above people who are rich. Yeah, so my dad was so wise. He bought, our Christmas shoes will be bought, and clothes will be bought sometimes in September. Because unlike here, there, okay, when it's December, that's when prices go up. Okay? So my dad beats the price, beats the market, beats everyone, and he gets me my Christmas clothes in September. When his late is October. And then you know how those Christmas shoes look like. Sometimes, a lot of times, they are oversized. Your parents tell you, "Hey, don't worry, you'll grow into them." Yeah. And the clothes were oversized. Everything was oversized because you will grow into them. I don't know what was happening here. But that God performed a miracle of preservation, that for these 40 years of their wilderness wanderings, God made it so much so that they didn't run out of clothes or even out of shoes. But they needed the shoes to be able to do the wanderings in the scorching heat of the desert. God performed a miracle of preservation, and God wanted them to constantly remember that. But the other thing that I see is found in verse 6 through 9, and that is that memorialization is a basis for future anticipation. You want to anticipate future blessings from the Lord. You want to expect more blessings from the Lord. Then don't just do. You cannot just expect from the Lord without remembering what you have received from the Lord. The reason we can trust God for future provision is because of the past provision He's already made. And each time we are tempted to forget that He has provided in the past, we don't have the capacity to believe that He will provide in the future. So they needed to constantly remember this as they expect God. And so in verse 6, it says, observe the commands of the Lord your God, walking in His ways and revering Him. For the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, a land with streams and pools of water, with springs flowing in the valleys and hills, a land with wheat and barley, vines and fig trees, pomegranates, olive oil, and honey, a land where bread will not be scarce and you will lack nothing, a land where the rocks are iron and you can dig copper out of the hills. All of these are utopian symbols of abundance and prosperity. God was taking them into a prosperous land. For those of you who have gone to Israel, you are amazed how the whole place has been transformed into what it is. So much so that those of us who don't come from desert areas, we are not even as green as those places. And you are not even as prosperous as those places were not. Why? The abundant blessings of God. And Israel was to constantly remember this. That in thanking God for blessings that they have already received, they now have a basis to expect future blessings from God. But they're doing it not just because they want to get future blessings from God. They are doing it because they are grateful and thankful to God. They have not forgotten all of His benefits. They are thankful to Him for the many things that He has already done. I think it helps. It helps for us to be able to get to that place where we are not forgetting, but where we're expecting. But our expectation is not from man, but from God. Now, have you been to a prayer meeting where one rich guy strolls into the church and you just know that this prayer item is prayed to this man and not to God? And somebody just shares because this guy just walked into church and the guy is loaded and you wanted to get into the guy's ears and you don't want to go and tell him, hey, I need this, so you spiritualize it and we paint it as though we are praying to God, but actually, it's not to God. We want to make all of our expectations about God because people will disappoint. Because cursed is the one who puts his trust in man. But also in verse 17 to 18, what I see there is that remembrance or memorialization is a remedy against pride. Otherwise, when you have eaten and are satisfied, praise the Lord your God for the good land He has given you. And then in verse 17, it says, let me take it from verse 16. He gave you manna to eat in the desert, something your fathers had never known, to humble and to test you, so that in the end it might go well with you. You may say to yourself, my power and the strength of my hands have produced this wealth for me. But remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth, and so confirms His covenant, which He swore to your forefathers as it is today. Amen. When they left Egypt, how many were they compared to the number of the enemies that they confronted? They didn't have any formidable army, but God performed a miracle in Exodus 14 when He parted the Red Sea and they were able to cross. Then you find the first congregational meeting of Miriam, Aaron, and the whole community of the Israelites in Exodus 15. Sing unto the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously the horse, and its rider he has thrown into the sea. It was God. When they went through this desert, this venomous desert, this dangerous desert that had venomous snakes and scorpions, it was God who was leading them and not by their own strength. And Israel needed to remember that when they begin to enjoy prosperity, when they have settled in the land and they are enjoying prosperity, they should remember that it was the Lord. I feel sometimes that, let me just share this. I don't know how many of you have almost gotten involved in an accident, and somehow you didn't. And I hear the testimonies like, oh, this guy was just on my way and I was almost going to heal him, but because I am an experienced driver, I just... Experience? Why must it be about you? And not the God who graciously prevented you. You don't know what God was doing between you and the guy you were going to eat. You have no idea. You have no idea what God is up to. So why are you taking it to yourself instead of saying, but God? Sometimes people feel they are where they are because of their smartness, because of their intelligence. Now, in which case, honestly, some of us, my mom wonders how I go through school. Because I forget virtually everything. And she says to me one day, how do you go to school? I said to her, the teachers help me. I mean, it is God and God alone. Yeah. And unless we get to that point where we realize that we are where we are what we are by God's sheer grace and mercy, we don't know what it is to remember. Living anywhere is tough. But living away from home, wherever you call home, is even tougher. How you survive it, you just know that it has to be God. And because it is God, friends, let me say this to us. One of my mentors said to me, he said, you know why I don't like combining serving Christ with craftiness? Because I want to know when it is God who is blessing me or when it is my craftiness. Now, I want to look back and be able to say, it's been God all the way. It's been God all along. That I didn't use any trickery, whatever, but it's been God all along. Remember, pride is dangerous. It is that which the Bible says goes before a fall. Pride is dangerous. And we show pride differently. I miss those times in Nigeria when I will go to maybe it's a church or a function and somebody will stand up and say, well, on behalf of my very humble self. And I say, wow, this guy is so humble, he even knows he's humble. Oh, how very humble. And we show it in different ways. Sometimes even by the way we dress. Dress to kill, to intimidate, to show that we are not on the same levels. Levels have changed. Even the way we talk. We want people to know, and it's all about us. Have you ever been in a situation where this guy just tries to dominate in every conversation? He or she doesn't even have ears or time to listen to what other people have to say. And everybody keeps quiet. And the guy runs and after a while he says, what was I even saying? And the people say in their hearts, well, we thought so long ago. that we need to remember. As we constantly remember where we are coming from, where God has led us all these years, it should make us humble. It should. Now for all of us who came from the other side of the globe, how much money did you come to the U.S. with? So when we sit down and we complain, things are not working for me. Wait now. What did you come with? Are you not thankful that God has kept you? And I remember this church so very well. I remember when we were praying for you, when you were commissioned. I remember all of these things. And to imagine that we now have a place we can call our own. Are we to forget? Are we to forget those days of sharing the Uptown Baptist Church? Are we to forget the conveniences and the inconveniences of living in a borrowed place? Are we to forget the miracle of divine provision that God has brought our way, and that by His grace we are where we are and we are what we are? Are we to forget? God will have done it without you, sir.
Amen.
Dr. Loretti, God will have done it without you.
Amen.
And any other person who has sat here, God will have done it without you.
Amen.
But that God brought all of you and used you guys all these years and all of the members here to have this. Let's not forget. Let us remember. Let me try and round up with the last one. That it is a preventive against self-destruction. And what comes to my mind is when Moses went up the mountain of the Lord to get the Ten Commandments, and the Israelites had waited for him for long, and they didn't know what was happening to Moses. They said to Aaron, hey, make us gods who will go before us. As for this Moses, we don't know what has happened to him. And Aaron made a golden calf for them. Images of gods that they remember very well in Egypt. And this is the folly of the whole thing. Aaron said to them, and these are the gods who brought you out of Egypt. What happened? You mean they so easily forgot all of the miracles that they saw? And they attributed the powers of God to an image, a golden calf. Maybe God brought people your way who graciously helped you to be what you are today. Those people must not and should never take the place of God. Maybe we celebrate those people more than we celebrate the God who used those people for your own good. What is it that you need to remember? Why do we find it difficult to remember? I think it becomes easy for us to remember how God has blessed us and all of the blessings we have received in the past if we're busy competing and comparing ourselves with other people. The mold God used to make me, when He was done, He broke it. So there is no another me anywhere in this world. You may find someone who looks like me, talks like me, behaves like me. He is not me. I am me, uniquely, specially, fearfully, and wonderfully made. No duplicate anywhere. The purposes and plans that God has for me are not the same with what He has for you. So stop playing God in my life. You can't play God in anybody's life. But I tell you what competition does. It makes us want to appreciate what we already have received. It makes us envious of other people. Some people may have the blessing of material prosperity, but they will die early. You may not have, but you may enjoy good health and long life. Which one would you prefer? Yeah. Somebody said he'd rather have the good things of life and no way. No way. When you are sick, you will want to give up everything in this world just to have your health back. So why is that? Will you let me close with a story? In those years when we were in secondary school, I told you that I am not a smart guy. By that, I'm not an intelligent person. And I'm not just saying this to pretend to be humble. I'm really not. I'm not smart. So we had this maths quiz that was done in our class that we were so humble we didn't want to impress the teacher. So we got very low grades because, that's, when you're humble, that's what you want to do. You don't. So we got very low grades, and the teacher was so generous. I don't know where he got additional grades, and he gave us free grades, free marks. So he gave us 20 more for each one of us who didn't make it. And my friend, I had this friend who loved comparing his grades. I don't know why some people are just like that. They get their script back. They should look at theirs and whatever has happened, but this guy will want to compare. So after we got the additional, which means you don't know what we got before the additional, and that's good for me. My friend looked at his own and it was 39. And he looked at mine, it was 38. And he laughed. Now 38 and 39 are still not passing marks. But he laughed. He laughed and he was so happy and he said, I'll say it in Hausa, those of you who know English can help me. If you know Hausa, you help me say it in English, okay? And my friend looked at me and he laughed and laughed. And it's so annoying when you know that you're already dealing with the pain of not making a pass mark, and then not knowing how to explain this to your parents who are spending so much money on you, and somebody is laughing. And my friend said, now somebody needs to help me. How do you say this in English? We are better than others. He got 39, I got 38. We all have failed, but because he had one above me, he said we are better than others. But I came off thinking about life. That life needs to be lived with a realization that whatever your situation, no matter how terrible, you're still better off at something. Amen. Our Father, we ask that you will help us, that we will never forget to remember your grace upon our lives, the salvation that we have enjoyed through Christ Jesus our Lord, the healing you have brought upon our sick members, our family members, our friends, and people around us. How you have provided for us in ways we can simply call miraculous. Father, please, we ask that you will help us not to take these for granted. Fill us with a deep sense of gratitude. In Jesus' name.